Hi, my name is Rima and welcome to the new Mass Effect Odyssey video on Mass Effect 3 Leviathan, and joining me is the familiar voice, Ash.
Hello.
And today we're talking about, as I said, Mass Effect 3's DLC Leviathan, which is one of probably our favourite DLCs. So today we're going to be talking about what happens in the DLC, a little bit about the lore, the background, and what we think about it, as well as how it kind of joins into the ending, and how we think it affects the ending for us. Mm-hmm. So, before we even start talking about Leviathan in general, do you want to say anything about the DLC at all?
Yeah, basically like you were saying just there, it is one of my favourite DLC because it's interesting that that people can correct me if I'm wrong, because I normally am, but as far as I know, the Leviathans weren't actually even mentioned in any of Mass Effect 1 as far as I know, and I'm not even sure they're in Mass Effect 2. They may have been, in terms of like maybe a codex or something, but the whole point of the Leviathans is the remaining ones have been like wiping their existence from basically everything in the universe, essentially. So I think it's interesting that in Mass Effect 3 they got their whole entire own DLC kind of thing, when we basically haven't heard of them for the first two games. Yeah, they've been doing a very good job of keeping themselves away. But it's interesting because obviously the Leviathans are, if for everyone who has played DLC, they are essentially what the Reapers are based from. The term Apex Race comes up because the Leviathans see themselves as the Apex Race before Reapers were even a thing, and then obviously the Reapers came along, and then the few and far between of the Leviathans that were left just hid themselves away, kind of thing. So I think it's good because there is history there, because these are essentially how the Reapers began, and obviously Reapers are a big thing of all three of the games.
Thanks, Leviathan.
Yeah, for God's sake, better protect yourself next time. But no, it's very interesting. And I've actually only played Leviathan maybe 4 or 5 times, despite the fact that I've played Mass Effect 3 about 10 to 12 times, maybe.
I think out of all the times I played Mass Effect 3, I've played Leviathan most of the times, bar I think about 2 times. And to basically record for this podcast, because in the background what you'll be watching is my playthrough of the latest Leviathan. I had to do this twice because we decided to do it after I finished doing the playthrough of it. So I went back and recorded it again, so I think it'll be a lot more quicker the second round time. So hopefully you won't see me making any mistakes or falling off.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, obviously we're not looking, because obviously that DLC is like, what, 3 hours long? Maybe?
Yeah.
So obviously it's not going to be a 3-hour podcast, so it'll be cut down to certain bits by me in editing, so you'll only see certain bits of it. So
we'll probably hopefully also keep a lot of Leviathan's little speech at the end, try and keep some of it in there, so you get to hear him chat. But okay, so I thought what we could talk about was basically run through the the DLC first, from location to characters stuff, and then kind of talk about what we picked up from it, basically the lore and timeline and things like that. So basically the DLC starts off, for anyone who hasn't played it, it starts off with Shepard being told by Admiral Hackett that they're needed to help Project Aurora or Team Aurora or something like that. I'm not entirely sure.
Aurora does come into it. That was all the information I had. And
it's led by Dr. Garrett Bryson. We double checked his name before we started, and he's basically, I would call him a monster hunter, because that's basically what he does. He finds myths and tries to prove them. He's basically a paleontologist in space, and that's kind of what he does. And he's apparently suspected that he thinks he's found a Reaper killer, and Shepard's been told, go and, find out what this Reaper killer is and find out as much as you can. So Shepard heads off to meet Bryson on the Citadel in his office, and he ends up getting, before he can tell you everything, he ends up getting shot, right? By his potentially, we don't know, but at that point it's assumed that he's indoctrinated assistant.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we were kind of reading in the information we had before we started, where it's not so much known as indoctrination from the Leviathans, it's only indoctrination through the Reapers. But they have, obviously the Leviathans have a similar power, so we just assume they're under under their influence at that point,
Well,
because they have that orb thing.
His assistant kind of comes up to him. He looks like he's completely lost control.
Yeah.
And he just basically raises his gun, shoots Dr. Bryson, and then when he eventually snaps out of it, he has no idea or recollection of what's happened.
I think that's the difference between indoctrination and the Leviathans.
Mind jack version is what I call Leviathan.
Yeah.
What he does. He mind jacks people.
The mind jack that the Leviathans do, I think there is a way where the Leviathans will let them go without any kind of after effect, as it were. Possibly. I don't know how much that's referenced in there. Although it didn't...
Well, it seems to be like every time we'll go over it when he kind of talk about the other points where he kind of like...
Yeah.
The abilities of Leviathan, but basically when it seems that he's taken over, or it's taken, we don't really know the race or the sex of Leviathan, but when Leviathan takes over a person, they always seem to be left with that feeling of like darkness or cold or whatever. It seems like they have a feeling that they were kind of messed with.
Yeah.
But they don't really have a full... But they're left with lingering feelings. I think it depends on how long they've kind of been left...
Yeah.
With this, and I don't know whether it's indoctrinated or whether it's just just being like completely taken over.
Yeah.
But yes, so Shepard gets basically taken over to kind of find out what Dr. Bryson's been up to, and they find out that there is potentially this Reaper killer on the loose, and that something is trying to stop them. So Shepard heads off to try and find out what the Reaper killer is, and ends up them trying to go from place to place, trying to get clues of what Leviathan is, leading to an encounter where they actually end up meeting what ends up being Leviathan, or what if the Leviathan... I don't know whether Leviathan is actually a term for the entire race.
No, I think it is. I think because the information I have here says the Leviathans are an ancient aquatic race, so Leviathans is a general term for them.
We read up on Leviathan and stuff. We knew the Leviathan isn't obviously a name given from Mass Effect universe. It's obviously... It's a biblical term for a sea creature or sea monster. And then from that, we kind of piece together that it obviously is an aquatic race of creatures. They live underwater. They kind of look like squid, or cuttlefish, I think was what Mass Effect Wiki tries to reference them as.
And they have weird faces as well. They have they have a moustache.
They kind of look like, as you call them, steampunk harbinger.
Yeah, they look brown and gold. Yeah.
So that's basically the run through. The Shepard ends up meeting a fair number of key characters throughout. They try to find Bryson's partner or associate Garneau, and they head off to you're gonna have to help me with this one. Is it TGES Mining Works?
Yes.
And it's just basically a mining facility that is being mining, I think, is it Element Zero possibly?
Yeah.
And they go there try and find Garneau. Everyone there seems to be under the influence of something or indoctrination, because none of them seem to be wanting to help them. They kind of end up meeting a semi indoctrinated version of Garneau, who ends up speaking in this really creepy voice, telling them to turn back and the darkness shall not be breached and all this hubbub.
You shall not pass.
Yes, he's basically Gandalf. And they try and find this artifact apparently Garneau has found that they think is linked to Leviathan. They get to the artifact, but they have to beat off Reapers, because the Reapers are also trying to get to this artifact. Garneau manages to destroy the Reaper artifact, or it's actually the Leviathan artifact, as well as destroying himself. But he ends up and this is the part I don't actually understand. Did Leviathan make a clone?
A clone? Of
Garneau? Well, because you'll see it when you watch my gameplay. But when you see the end scene of that part, they chase Garneau into the mining facility, and he's got this artifact, and he says that the darkness can't be breached. He doesn't want the Reapers to get this artifact because he doesn't want Leviathan to be discovered, and he blows himself up as well as the artifact, and before Shepard can stop him. But then you discover that there's a dead body on the ground, and the dead body is actually of Garneau, who's been dead for several weeks, but yet they've been talking to Garneau the entire time. So whether it's another person that's meant to have just assumed the identity of Garneau, or whether he's actually has the ability to create a clone, I don't really understand.
I think potentially it's maybe something that maybe just someone looks similar, and because the original Garneau died previously, he's just used him just to kind of fool them, kind of thing. Because at no point did they say, "Oh, you Garneau." It's like, "Oh yeah, here's my ID." So
no, because he said I am Garneau, and so they assume. But he does look like the Garneau that they kind of vaguely see in the And yeah, so they have nowhere else to go, and then they find Bryson's daughter Anne, and that's where you kind of find out a little bit more about Leviathan's origins, where you end up on this planet where there's cave drawings, which I think is actually pretty cool.
I do like the cave drawings, yes.
And it seems that Leviathan was this mythical god creature that like cave people worshipped at some point. And Anne becomes the next kind of key character to help you find Leviathan, and she helps you find Leviathan using her body. Basically, she lets Leviathan take over her body and her mind, revealing its position, and then they end up getting to that place, and that leads to the big huge conversation. So it's for a 3-hour DLC, it actually doesn't feel that long.
No.
Even though I've summarised it really, really quickly, it doesn't actually feel...
Yeah, no, it's something where literally a lot of it is the build up to like that kind of 5 to 10 minute conversation with Leviathan at the end. So
compared to like other DLCs that we've played, like Shadow Broker doesn't seem that long either, though it definitely felt longer than Leviathan. But Overlord was probably shorter than Leviathan, but that felt like it was horrendously long. I don't understand. I think it's just the writing in Leviathan's really well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting ride. So my thoughts for Leviathan is that everyone who plays Mass Effect 3 should probably play it, and everyone's probably going to get the remaster trilogy because it will come out. I'm determined it's going to come out.
Assuming.
It's definitely going to come out.
No, I'm
because
pretty sure it's
they're
going
to be dumb not to
I'm pretty sure. Well, my hope is that they'll announce, maybe not a release date for Mass Effect 4, but they'll give a gameplay trailer for that, and they'll say, oh, by the way, within the next week we're releasing the...
Oh, no, they're going to release... they're going to release that on N70.
Yeah, that's November, though.
Yeah, but they want you to have, like, a couple, like, 5-6 months until Mass Effect 4 comes out. Anyway, we're really off on a tangent here, but... everyone will get the opportunity to play Leviathan if they haven't at that point, but if you haven't played Leviathan and you've got Mass Effect 3, you're kind of doing the ending a bit of a disservice, I think, by not playing Leviathan.
Yeah, although you made the good point earlier on that it's not really known, because I made the point that, because as far as we know there's only 3 of them, because we see the 3 of them in that kind of footage at the end. And yes, they help Shepard to escape, which is the point you made, from the planet that they're on, but it's not really known whether they help the cause.
I don't think they do, because when you look at the codex, because I think there's possibly a point in the video that I do have a look at the codex, you could probably cut that out, but I had a look at the codex just to see what it kind of explains Leviathan's role as, and it doesn't seem to show Leviathan as anything more as what you've already learned from the DLC. So you hear Leviathan is obviously an aquatic creature that somehow created an AI that led to the Reaper formation, and other than Bryce, like Anne Bryson, and other than like Project Aurora's data, I don't think there's any point where you actually get Leviathan as an asset, which would assume that Leviathan would have been actually...
Yeah, you probably would have seen it in the corner saying war asset acquired or something like that.
Yeah, because
I don't think you see. So
you get like Leviathan enthrallment team and things like that, and you get Anne Bryson as like a war asset. Like, I'll read all the war assets because I found them. So you get, apparently around the area there's obviously things like Vorcha Labor Team, Fighter Wing, Husk Neural Map, Dextro Rations, Heat Sinks, Jovian Dissertation, Radiation Sheet, and these are all ones you can find on the planets when you're scanning them to find Leviathan's location. Then the main 2 ones are Leviathan Enthrallment Team, I can never say that word, and Dr. Anne Bryson. So they never say that Leviathan is now a war asset that's running around the galaxy trying to help you.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't have the capability for spaceflight, because they do. It's just obviously these few that are left have chosen not to.
Well, because after it seems to knock down that giant Reaper on the water planet, it seems to like sink back down into the water.
It seems to
nope.
It seems to literally all it was intended to do was help Shepard escape, because like you were saying before we started recording, they realise there's something different in Shepard and there may actually be a chance with this person. So they've helped him escape so they can maybe just get him back to what he needs to do, or potentially he needs to do.
What she may need to do.
Or she, sorry.
Remember what we're going to be watching in the background.
Yeah, sorry. Your one's a femship. Sorry, my current one I'm playing on Mass Effect 1 is a femship as well. So, but yeah, so it's not really known. I don't think they actually help in the overall thing. But yeah, you get various war assets. But it's interesting you talk about the enthrallment team.
Yeah, so
because that's a term that's used throughout the notes and stuff that I've got here. Because the thrall, as they call them, all the thralls, what was called the species that were taken over by Leviathans. And this is how essentially the whole synthetic thing began, because it was the thralls that were making synthetics to help them, and it was those synthetics that were then rebelling. And in response to that, Leviathans then made the intelligence, which we know as the it's the light child, but I can't remember his actual name.
Catalyst.
Catalyst, thank you. So they essentially create the Catalyst, I'm assuming, which is then his whole task is to preserve life at all costs. But then that then betrays the Leviathans, because it sees the Leviathans as weaker compared to all that. They start killing them off, and from the remnants left of the Leviathans that have been killed, that's where we get Harbinger, who's the first Reaper. And then it goes from there, essentially. So, whether there's only 3 left, I think that's maybe a bit far-fetched. I think there's probably more than 3, but I don't think there's that many more left. So, there just happens to be 3 in the DLC. So,
well, it seems that obviously the reveal is Leviathan pops out from the ground underwater. Shepard's like, what the? And then obviously after Leviathan, or one of the Leviathan, has had this big chat with you, Shepard's still unconscious. Shepard never sees the 3 Leviathan. Shepard's fully unconscious for this point.
He only sees the one.
Yeah, so what happens is when they're leaving, you then see 2 other ones pop out, and that's just the 3 there. We don't know actually how many there are actually lurking around.
It depends if they're all on that one kind of water-based planet.
I would assume if Leviathan would be smart, and they wouldn't all be sitting on the same planet. No. They may need water to because they, from all we've read, they are an aquatic-based creature, but they managed to somehow. It's kind of rumored that they possibly have implants.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the fact that one of the key reasons that Shepard and Bryson could find them was the fact that they were using element 0 for something. But then we were like, but aren't they organic? Why would they need basically starship fuel to be flying around everywhere? But it's kind of assumed that Leviathan's actually basically a cyborg, that they actually are half organic but also half machine, because they've been implanting themselves to actually do spaceflight, hence why they can be destroying Reapers along the way. But it seems that Leviathans probably wouldn't all be sitting on the same planet. They probably
I would assume they'd spread themselves out, so yeah, maybe that's just the 3 on that particular planet. I mean, it sounds ridiculous that there's only 3 on one planet, but if you're going to spread yourselves out, then that's probably the way to do it, just have a few on the planet. And these things are pretty big, so they're pretty damn enormous. So
I think we'll go back to the DLC itself, but I think we can go and talk about a little bit about Leviathan's history and the lore, because I think people are interested in us talking about the lore.
Yes.
So you kind of touched on it. Leviathan, according to the wiki and according to everything we've read, Leviathan's the first recorded species in the Mass Effect galaxy.
Yeah, it's very unknown as to kind of where they were, kind of thing. But we assume that they're probably the earliest known species.
Recorded,
recorded
we don't know
species,
what came before them.
But the Aurora thing you're trying to guess earlier on was Task Force Aurora as well.
Task Force Aurora, that's the thank you. It's basically Project Aurora, it's fine.
Yeah, no, you got the right name, that's fine. Yeah. But yeah, because the problem is there's a lot of unknown. It literally, all the notes I have are all unknown. It says it's their history is unknown. It's an unknown planet that they originally came from. It's also known that they produced, or maybe not they produced, but there was around the time produced at least one other sapient species. I'd be interested to know who they were.
Well,
because they don't know anything about them apparently. So
from the cave drawings, they seem like they were humanoid of some sort.
Yeah, maybe these are the thrall species, the very first thrall species.
But it seems like when you speak to Leviathan, Shepard said, why were you so why would you want to create this AI? And Leviathan says that basically we didn't want to lose our tribute. So it seems like Leviathan species became very dependent on whatever the thrall they were kind of being looked after by, because let's face it, Leviathan may be this all-powerful water squid thing living under the water that's huge and can control people with their like minds, but they're also, for all purposes, giant squid, so we don't really know what they could survive on, things like that. So it seemed like they were quite dependent on their thrall. And there's one point where in the DLC where like Leviathan basically shows like it spread through the galaxy, and it seems like it wasn't just the one planet, it seemed like there were like hundreds of planets. So maybe there wasn't just the one species, maybe there was like quite a few.
Yeah.
It's very unclear how many kind of races that they were dominating at that point.
Yeah.
But they were apparently the apex race.
Yeah. They were kind of the be all end all, as it were.
Yeah. And so then they started to realise that, because clearly their reign, we were doing a timeline for Mass Effect before we decided to do lore videos.
Yeah, the lore videos essentially are the breakdown of the timeline project that we were originally working on. So
yeah. And I think we came up to, was it 1 trillion BCE? I think that was that's like before the Common Era, and Common Era is obviously Mass Effect's a normal timeline.
Yeah,
so
like
1 million years, like one, was it
thing.
one? It would be 1 billion or 1 trillion? No, 1 billion.
I think it was 1 billion. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 billion years before that. That's when Leviathan was like running around doing its thing, and it seemed like they must have had a really long stretch of time that they were running around, because in that time they saw people or creatures, whoever their thralls were, from being cave people to actually developing their own AI. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with Leviathan's help.
Yeah, I was going to say, they say it wasn't even the Leviathan that did it originally, it was the thralls that the Leviathan had taken over that started building the synthetics that then
basically their slave races basically started developing AIs that started to destroy them, much like the Geth, much like the Reapers, and then Leviathan thought, well, hey, let's not learn from their mistakes, let's make our own AI. And that's what they did. They made an AI to basically monitor the situation, kind of review it, do some recon, and then that thing kind of escalated a little bit. And it seemed to have taken things a little bit too far. Where it kind of ended up, and we read that the fact that it was taking physical samples is what Leviathan basically calls it.
Yeah.
Or taking physical data. Which kind of sounds like they were harvesting them a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like they were harvesting them, and Leviathan was pretty okay with it.
Well, they kind of it says in a lot of the notes here that they kind of sat back and let it happen, kind of thing. So,
and then eventually the AI, the Catalyst, realized that, hey, the solution to this mandate was that the solution to the problem is that life itself is just uncontrollable. It's going to do whatever the hell it wants. Its only way to stop life from destroying itself is to destroy life before it destroys itself.
Which is essentially where you get the whole 50,000 year cycle, and then the species reaching its kind of peak of dominance and then being struck down. So, and
I think clearly what the AI figured out was, hey, the people that made us clearly created AI to just, so that didn't make sense, so they just turned on their own careers.
Yeah.
And harvested Leviathan's race to create the first Reaper, which was obviously Harbinger.
Yes.
DJ Harbinger himself. Put in that picture there, that would be awesome. So then that kind of led to the cycle of destruction, the first cycle.
Not seen many more Reapers after that.
And many more Reapers. And apparently, according to Leviathan, after every 50,000 year cycle, there's a new Reaper created, normally in the image of
the next worthy apex race, essentially.
Well,
I think it's what the conclusion we came to. So,
Leviathan states that after every harvest cycle, a new Reaper is created in the image of the first Reaper, Harbinger, which is Leviathan's image. But from what we think that possibly the Reapers have decided that they wanted to make another Reaper, which would be the next Apex Reaper, which would have been the human Reaper in End of Mass Effect 2, which didn't happen.
No.
because whoopsie daisies.
Because obviously at some point the Reapers have seen the humans, and maybe specifically Shepherd, as thinking, okay, this species may be worthy of, being the next kind of Reapers, as it were. And I think you made the point of having a giant Iron Man flying around the galaxy, and I made the point of having a giant Iron Giant going around the galaxy. But yeah, obviously that never happened because you destroy it at the end. So
so I think that's basically our idea of what the Reaper origin story was, and then from there there's evidence to say that Leviathan didn't completely go out, without fighting. There's evidence that there's this Leviathan of Dis, which when I first heard of Leviathan of Dis, I assumed that was actually the original Leviathan. And I think that's what everyone in the Mass Effect universe thinks, until Dr. Bryson says, no, that's actually the Reaper that's been discovered by the Batarians that was actually completely destroyed. That led to this big chase for whatever actually managed to kill this Reaper. So Leviathan of Dis was kind of one of the main first documented kills the Leviathan species made, and then that kind of put Leviathan on the Reaper's radar again. That they were a bit of an issue. So that's kind of the background to Leviathan that we figured was kind of interesting and important. Is there anything you picked up from reading or the
No, I mean
game?
that's I mean, obviously people can kind of source their own information online and try and find out a bit more about them, but a lot of it's very similar to what a lot of the wikis say, and what a lot of other maybe codex stuff in the game says and stuff like that. So it's all kind of there, really. They were once the great power in the universe, and then they weren't, kind of thing, essentially. Now they're kind of hiding away on some water-based planet somewhere, which is obviously the one in Mass Effect 3, but there's probably more as well out there. But I always found them. I say I always found them. They only turned up in Mass Effect 3. But ever since I first played the DLC, I've always found them an interesting species, because essentially it's where the Reapers were born from. So, and I think probably a lot of people tend to gloss over that, because they were just overawed by this massive great squid thing in front of them. It's ooh, and it's got a booming voice too.
Yeah.
And they don't tend to listen to the deeper meaning of what they're actually saying. So yeah, I found it interesting. Like you were saying the other day, you replayed it and you actually sat there and intently listened, and you said that you found it pretty interesting as to what he was saying and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I think the way Leviathan comes across, they state very much clearly when Shepard asked why, when you saw the other races kind of being destroyed by the AI, why did you go ahead and make your own AI? And Leviathan thought, well, you have no idea what it was like to be such a big, powerful race. We just thought that there would be another tool for us to use. We just didn't think. And their ego got the better of them. They thought that nothing could destroy them because they'd lived probably 1 billion years of nothing ever being able to destroy them.
Yeah.
And they just didn't realize that the one thing that could destroy them was their own creation. And I think my favorite part of Leviathan is the way that it manages to kind of echo the rest of the plot on Mass Effect, because Leviathan's journey is basically exactly the Geth and the Quarians. Geth and the Quarians are on a much smaller scale, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And when you actually manage to play Leviathan, you actually manage to get to the ending, you get those I think there's a couple extra dialogue options. They're not huge, but they fairly change what you think about this light child.
Yeah.
And Leviathan itself admits that it's completely out of control. It's no longer the right course of action because it's destroying everything, but it states that it doesn't want to do anything because it's actually doing what it's meant to be doing. It's not malfunctioning. It's still doing what it was programmed to do, which is make sure that humanity, or make sure that living life doesn't destroy itself. It's just something else destroys it instead.
Yeah, essentially.
It's a little contradictory, but
Yeah.
But it just seems like Leviathan, there's a lot more stuff that Leviathan, the DLC didn't explain, but there's alludes to the fact that maybe Leviathan caused a lot of other galactic events. When you're running around Bryson's office, and you're looking at things like animal movements and crimes, hidden crimes and stuff. It seems like Leviathan was greatly involved in things like controlling the Rachni at some point.
Yes.
possibly influencing things like Rachni to actually emerge from the Mu relay and things like that, and actually causing possibly the Rachni War, which possibly led to the Krogan rebellions, which possibly led to the Genophage and all this other stuff. So who knows what Leviathan was involved in, because it's strong as to just Leviathan did a lot of other stuff in the background.
But we'll never know.
We'll never know. As well as things like how do we not know what Leviathan has, what a kind of role it had in all the other cycles.
Yeah. And
the fact that Leviathan has very similar, because you kind of said that when you read something, that Leviathan has a very similar control to the Rachni, that they can mindjack and basically control people to make them talk.
Yeah.
So is there a link between Leviathan and the Rachni that's not really explained? Are the Rachni a descendant? Are they
That's a good question.
possibly one of the thrall creatures the Leviathan actually controlled before? It's not really stated, but there's a link, because the Rachni and the Leviathan seem to be fairly linked throughout the whole way through.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that they don't really kind of explain, but I think it's kind of up to ourselves to kind of judge.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously there's things that touch on like indoctrination and stuff like that as well, but obviously we'll do another separate recording on
indoctrination
and indoctrination theory, because we know that people are going to want to hear stuff on that as well. So that'll all be another one as well.
So thank you for listening to us talk about this for probably nearly half an hour, probably
nearly
longer.
40 minutes.
Oh wow. But
so much for short podcasts.
Please share your thoughts on Leviathan, what you think Leviathan is, what you think about the DLC, and what you think about if there's any conspiracy theories, anything like that. We love to hear about those in the comments below. Yes, and please share this video to help us, with the channel, support us. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, because we love people when they subscribe.
We do.
And thank you for all the support as you've been going on.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so that's us signing off for until we'll see you next video, I guess.
Yep.
Whichever one that is.
Yes.
So bye.
Bye bye.
What is that? I had to find you.
This is not your domain. You have breached the darkness.
You killed a Reaper. I need to know why.
They are the enemy. One that seeks our extermination.
But I thought you were a Reaper.
They are only echoes. We existed long before.
Then what are you?
Something more. Your mind belongs to me. Breathe.
Man, what's happening?
Your memories give voice to our words. Your nature will be revealed to us. Accept this.
The galaxy's at war with the Reapers. You defeated one. Why aren't you fighting back?
There is no war. There is only the harvest.
Then help us stop it.
None have possessed the strength in past cycles. Your own species could be destroyed with a single thought. But you are different. I have witnessed your actions in this cycle. The destruction of Sovereign, the fall of the Collectors. The Reapers perceive you as a threat. And I must understand why.
you remain hidden all this time?
Our extermination is not complete. Some survived and found refuge in the dark corners of the galaxy. I am their progeny. Over the cycles, the Thrall races were controlled, removing traces of our existence as we directed them to. In this way, our survival was kept secret from the Reapers. Today, we reach out through the fragments and watch for discovery.
Fragments? You mean the artifacts we found?
They provide a window into the galaxy. Tools for exploring the events of this cycle from the safety of this world. Through them, we watch, we study, and remain in the shadows.
You built that machine despite what you saw the other races experience. Why?
You cannot conceive of a galaxy that bends to your will. Every creature, every nation, every planet we discovered became our tools. We were above the concerns of lesser species. The intelligence was envisioned as simply another tool.
And now we all pay the price for your mistake.
There was no mistake. It still serves its purpose.
Tell me about the Reapers.
Each harvest ends with the birth of a Reaper. Perfect in its design. Each formed in Harbinger's image. Our image. Each Reaper has the power to influence organics. Over countless cycles, this ability was refined, perfected, and gave rise to indoctrination.
How did the intelligence defeat you?
To find a solution, it required information. Physical data drawn from organic life in the cosmos. It created an army of pawns that searched the galaxy gathering this data. There was no warning. No reason given when they turned against us. Only slaughter. Only the harvest.
What do you know about the Crucible?
We have watched its construction before. It has never been completed. Those who have tried still fell victim to the harvest. Its outcome is unknown.
Okay, you made your point. Will you help stop the cycle?
I have searched your mind. You are an anomaly, yet that is not enough.
Wait!
The cycle will continue.
No! You've been watching. You know this cycle is different.
We will survive. You will remain here as a servant of our needs. The Reapers will harvest the rest.
You release me, no one has to be harvested.
Nothing will change.
The Reapers know where you are. You can't just watch anymore. You have to fight. Even if you survive the battle today, the Reapers won't stop. Ever. Release me and we have a chance to end this once and for all. I've earned it. Out there fighting, where you should be.
It is clear why the Reapers perceive you as a threat. Your victories are more than a product of chance. We will fight, but not for you or any lesser race. We were the first, the apex race. We will survive. And the Reapers who trespass on this world will understand our